Welcome back to another YouTube video. My name's Codzan, and we're gonna review the Lumix G7 in 2021. I was almost gonna say 2020. Kind of crazy, but whatever. So I've had the camera for about a year, and I have some issues with it, and some that aren't really a big deal, but you know. First off, the autofocus. It's not that good. If I were to list cameras that have reliable autofocus, I'd probably start with Sony, Fujifilm, Canon, and Panasonic would be at the bottom of the barrel. It works, but it's not that good. Right now it's using face eye detection, so you can judge for yourself whether it's that bad, but to me it really falls short sometimes. It's not a huge deal, but for somebody who needs that reliable autofocus, maybe you want to choose something else. But for the budget, for $500, it's probably the best camera you can get. The lenses are really cheap compared to other brands. You can get the 25mm 1.7 for about $100 and something dollars. And you can get it even cheaper if you buy used on eBay. I'll probably leave some links for that stuff. My next downside with it, if you have a problem with the camera now, it's probably not gonna be the camera that you're gonna want to stick to, which is a plus side because the lenses are cheap. But for some people, that still might be a downside because, you know, it's cheap, but it's not actually cheap. It's just cheap in comparison to some other camera brands. The problem that I have is it's either a cheap lens or it's super expensive, and you don't have much third-party access. Like Canon, Sigma makes a ton of lenses for them, but for Panasonic, it's pretty much Panasonic or Sigma. Sigma has 3 lenses for them, I think, a 16mm, a 56, and a 35. And all of those range around the $500 range, which is the same price that you'd pay for this camera. So you see where I'm going. If it's not the system you want to stick with, you don't have that much availability unless you're willing to compromise and get manual focus lenses, which if you want to just be a fast shooter and get going, that's not reliable enough for you. The plus side is those manual lenses can be sharp. They do have some sharp shortcomings, but they work. And you know, like if you need a different focal range, you can always get one like from Mikey, whatever they call themselves, for like 30. I think they have a 35mm and a 25 1.7 that is under $100. It's manual focus, but it works. If you doing video, if you're a videographer, that might not be such of a big deal to you, but if you're a photographer or somebody that's trying to vlog, then that might be a huge deal. In that case, I'd recommend the Canon M50. It's a much better camera. I've heard that there aren't many lenses for it, so the same issue sticks with, is it a system that you can stick with long term? But it does work. It's $550 or more, I think. I know a YouTuber that I'm gonna leave the link to that he uses a M50. Great stuff. You can check him out if you are interested in that camera. It's probably a lot more reliable than the Lumix G7. But so far, do I hate my Lumix G7? No. Do I think it's the best camera at this price range for $500? Yes. If we're talking about $500 exactly. It's got 4K, 100 megabits per second. I'm not sure the bit rate, like the color spectrum, or did I just say the bit rate? I don't even know anymore. But at this price range, I'd say it's probably the best camera you can pick up for $500 exactly. It's got cheap lenses like the 25 1.7. They do have a 14 mil that is about $200. It is also a 1.4, or was it a 1.7? I think it's also a 1.7. But if you're planning a vlog, I'm gonna upsell you on getting the G85. It doesn't have much better autofocus, but it does have IBIS, which means in-body image stabilization. And if you're planning a vlog, you probably don't want that shaky footage, so probably look for a camera that has IBIS. If you're starting out, obviously that's not a big deal if you have money, or you just want to spend a little more just to make sure you can have that nice, smooth, buttery footage, then I'd say check out the Lumix G85. I've heard that Panasonic has updated their autofocus on the G9, but that's $1,000. It's a much better camera, comes weather sealed, all of that fancy stuff. But if you're just looking for a beginner camera, I'd recommend the Lumix G7. Just be aware of the shortcomings. The autofocus is a bit slow, sometimes it sticks. Even shooting for me, sometimes I do press down on the trigger and I'll feel the motor just keep pulsing. Like I can feel it in the hand grip, if that makes sense to you, which is really weird. But for $500, I don't see any cameras that have 4K continuous shooting. Like it has a 4K photo shooting mode, which is pretty cool. It has basically a lot of features, including post focus, which if you've ever seen those Instagram posts where like they have a subject and part, it's like the dude will be in front of some really nice looking background and he's out of focus, but the background is basically what post focus does is scan the entire it basically scans the entire frame, and then after you can select whatever focus point you want. So you can literally pick two different images out instead of manually focusing on that specific person or a background. Yeah. Okay. Oh, my battery's dead. Okay. Well, that's the end of the video. Pick out the Lumix G7. It's a great beginner camera if you're a filmmaker, if you're a photographer, which is what I use it mostly for. This is my Instagram, and these are some of the images that I've taken with